Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 486. Sunday Trustee Training. Public people do public things. This is one of those episodes that we just wanted to talk about these things because so many people have come to the vault. They enroll in trustee training, so we're going to talk about it from trustees that are gone through trustee training and they still think like public people doing public things. So appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Definitely hit the like and the subscribe button so you can actually get the notifications of when we go live, when we do the pop-up episodes, so you can actually click and get the instant coming through. And then always appreciate everybody that hits the like button and shows their support to the channel, to continue to grow the channel. So we always appreciate the likes and the subscriptions. Definitely want to go ahead into this episode. Sunday Trustee Training. Public people do public things. If you want to, feel free to reach out for trustee training. It's Christian at trustchristian.com. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Sunday Trustee Training. Public people do public things. Trustees will get into trustee training and they'll say, well, how am I going to pay for these public things that I already have in my name? We're going to go along the questions that we get so we can hear the thought process behind it, so we can move in the flow in which the answers come out. Because these are the questions that we get. How am I going to have the family estate start paying for public bills? Well, did you give up ownership yet? See, public people doing public things mean they still own it. That's the difference. Public people doing public things is them still owning assets. They still have assets in their name. They haven't started the transition process. The transition process hasn't happened. Why? Because everyone around them has assets in their name, or what they call assets. Some people have assets, some people have liabilities in their name. So they have these things in their name. Oh man, that's the secret? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they come to the vault, they come to the private so they can not have things in their name. They trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. That's what we hear. Okay. Public people do public things. We're gonna hop straight into it where we gotta go to this group and this audience that listens to the vault, and they'll say, oh, I gotta use my birth certificate so I can get some money from the government. I gotta get some money from the government. First of all, that's a public person doing a public process. That's a public thing. How are you private? How are you going private and you're doing public processes? Oh, I want to discharge debt. That's a public process. You're utilizing public debt instruments. So then we tell our trustees, hey, we got private securities, attorneys, we got these people that you can contact. But they'll let you know that public securities are public securities. Private contracts are private contracts. Public people doing these public things, so it looks like, oh, we're trying to get some money from our birth certificate. Oh, we're trying to get some money from the government. Oh, we're trying to utilize the social security number for this and that. Maybe we can use the social. Maybe we can capture the straw man name. Maybe we can capture the government name. Public people doing public things. They're trying to get control of the government name. That's what they say. Doing public things. We want to get control of the government name. Okay, well, if you want to get control of the government name, it looks like you might be in a position where you're doing a public thing. See, private people understand that they operate privately and that there's a public entity. There's a public facing entity. There's something in the public that is a representation. We're aware of that because the public is a representation of the private. It shows private interest to a degree, but it shows it in a limited capacity. Sometimes it shows it in a limited liability capacity. Sometimes it shows it in various different forms. The corporations, it shows itself in many different ways, but people are expressing themselves from the private and the public through entities. But then you got these private people say, "Oh, I don't know." I did really. This is because they don't understand the private because they never been in the private. They weren't educated through the private. They were brought up by looking at some information in the public through the internet, talking about a redemption manual to redeem their religious spirits. And in turn, how do you get to the point of a logical process? This is a business process. It's a business process. When you're a trustee, you're a trustee. You're in a business capacity. These are fiduciary capacities. These are not religious capacities. These are not emotional capacities. Public people doing public things, they're engaging in public processes. Oh, I want to get debt from a commercial entity or a public entity. That's the case. That's called getting money from a public process, doing a public thing. People ask, well, how am I going to get a loan? You or the trust? Well, how are they going to get a loan? Is it coming from the private family bank or is it coming from the public? The public institution. People are trying to do discharging debt and stuff. How you going to do that from the private? Well, I'm going to control the public entity. See how you went back in the public to do something publicly? The state doesn't have a contract with a private person. How could it? It's an artificial entity. The state is a artificial construct. It's the public. This comes from an entitlement mentality. People think that they deserve something from the public. They're entitled, actually, not deserve. They're entitled from something from the public. And as long as that philosophy or thought process is permeated from that individual, how are you moving and fully transitioned into private? That's not going to happen because there's a focus on doing public processes to get public results. People are oh, I'm trying to capture this security and capture that security. Where? In the public? Are you trying to capture a public debt? You trying to capture a public debt? That means you're doing public things. So when trustees come to us and they say, "Oh, I'm looking to be private. I'm going private. I'm focused on private." How are you focused on private? You're looking to find ways to manipulate or control public debt or own public debt. They almost want to own it. We have trustees that have almost indirectly said they want to own public debt. Nothing wrong with it. We're not saying this anything against it, but what capacity are you owning it? Do you own it or do you control it? That's the difference. There's a difference between having a debt that's personal and a debt that's business. Public people doing public things though. How do we get around the fact that a trustee will come in, "Oh, I want to go private," but you still got assets in your name? The house, the car. How do you get around that? You got to get locked in with a team. Public people do it. Public people that do public things on their own. They do it on their own. When you're in the private, you have to have a team. It's a team sport. Trust is a team sport. Trusteeship is a team sport. Business is a team sport. Only being an individual taxpayer is made for individuals. Then we had a trustee say, "Well, what about a sole proprietorship? I want to control my straw man. I want to control the sole proprietor," right? Why would you want to control something you didn't create? It was created based off of me, right? But it's you didn't create it literally. Well, I created a certificate of live birth, and I'm going to attach that to that security instrument because it's got a CUSIP number on it. And this is the conversation we've had, ladies and gentlemen. So we're only giving you conversation. We can recollect these conversations. They've been profuse throughout the years. These actually have been very persistent conversations where people have reached out for years and said, "Well, I'm trying to get in control of my public straw man. I'm trying to get in control of my government name." Oh yeah, the government name's the public name. See how you say you want to control it, but do you own it? Then you know you can't own things in this life when you're in the private. You know you can't own it when you're in the private. We're going to find out over the next coming years the transition of, are you public or are you private? People say, oh, privacy's not around. There's no privacy anymore. No more privacy. Right. Because people in the public think that. People in the private are very aware of what's going on. It's people in the public that think that there's no privacy anymore. Oh, there's no privacy. They literally are saying this. It's like it's just something that they can literally say out of their mouth. There's no privacy anymore. Public people do public things. They say public things. That's why they do public things. That's all they know. When you come into the private, we know fully and well what's going on. The private means you're not trying to have assets in your name. Whether it's your government name, your private name, or any name. We understand that we're in positions of not just creditors. Somebody even said an executor recently. We said, well, look, if you go to an executor position, that means you're passing along something. And is it irrevocable or is it irrevocable? Is it revocable or irrevocable? Public people do public things. They want it to be revocable so they can go back and change it because they really don't want to give up ownership. We're talking today. It's Sunday trustee training now. You can hit the like button. You can hit the subscribe button. Sunday trustee training. Public people do public things. That's what they're doing. How we get around this trust Christian vote? Don't rub it in our face. We all went to public school. What are we supposed to do? How do we get around this? How do we get around it? We educate ourselves. We learn private processes. And we focus on doing private things. And one of them is not focus on getting public money. It's establishing the private family bank. Public people are trying to get loans in the public. Private people are looking to establish their private family banking system. I mean, what are we missing here? What are we missing here? The education for the private family banking system? Oh, that's what we're missing. They want to talk about financial literacy? No, they're not talking about financial literacy. They're talking about not having a private family bank. That's what they're talking about. Why would you be caring about anyone else's money if you had a private family bank open to you? That is how the system works. That is how the system was founded. That is how the system is doing its thing 200 years later, 300 years later. When you talk about the Lloyds of London, the insurance that's been around for 300 years, for 500 years. You think you're about to create something new? Oh, we about to create DeFi. We're about to decentralize finance. We're about to go DeFi. We're about to go decentralized finance. Give me a break. Decentralized finance. We're going to go digital money. Are you serious? Public people do public things. Public people say we're going to digitize the money. How are you going to digitize the money? It's already digital. You look on your cell phone, you look on the computer, it's digits. But they got to play word games with you because you don't understand finance. And the way you're going to learn finance is by learning it, by engaging in it, not being afraid of it, by engaging in the information, learning how to use, as these new hippies say, your third eye, so you can decipher the information on your own. Because you looked at enough bad deals, you looked at enough good deals, you looked at enough good financial information, you looked at enough bad financial information. Most people, unfortunately, have not seen enough good financial information. They've seen a lot of bad financial information. It's almost like, well, what picture do they paint in the public? They paint a picture of fear. They paint a picture of failure. Oh, this bank's going under. This company's going under. This company's going bankrupt. This person's being sued. Right. They're telling you about the failures that you're supposed to avoid. Public people do public things, though. They want to keep getting public loans so they can go in public debt. They want to go and get personal loans so they can go into personal debt. Oh, take it out. You'll eventually make money in your business. Go get a business on the internet. Everybody makes money there. Yeah, right. If it was that easy, everybody be doing it. Right. It's not that easy. Public people do public things. They in the public, it's almost safe to say people would think that there's a failure. People think the system's broke. They think the public is a failure. Oh, we're trillions of dollars in debt. That can't be good. Oh, here we go. Let's talk about it then. Public people do public things. Oh, the debt ceiling. They need to raise the debt ceiling. Now let's think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The people that have the job based off the debt, why would they not raise the debt so they can keep their job? What kind of oxymoron is going on out here? Oh, we don't know if we're going to raise the debt ceiling. That means that they're not going to have a job. They only get paid based off the debt in taxpayer money, right? Right. But people want to sit out here and go back and forth about public information. Are they going to raise the debt ceiling? Yes, they're going to raise the debt ceiling. They're going to keep talking about it every year or whatever, every few years or whatever. Why would they not raise the debt ceiling? They're putting fear in your heart. They're putting fear in your mind. Why? Because it's called fear of loss. Well, if we don't do it, we could lose this. And then they start telling you everything they could lose. We could lose this. This could go wrong. That could go wrong. Oh, no, the world's going to go wrong. What do you mean? But if we raise it, everything will be fine. Right. So probably what are you going to do? Because if you don't raise it, how are we going to go on? Right. We're going to raise it. It's only an easy choice. But to put out the plausible question to the uneducated, that's what happens. Get a fear response. It's a twinge. I can't believe they would do that to us. So in all actuality, they was gonna raise it anyways. That's how they get paid. You gonna be okay with politicians making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and they're gonna let the country supposedly go bankrupt, which in turn will affect the company that you work for if you work for a company, or it's gonna affect the bank that is gonna get lending and be able to lend. So why would they not raise lending standards? Why would they not raise the debt ceiling? It's called fear. Public people do public things. What do public people do? They watch the news every day. We remember talking to someone recently. They told us they watch the news every day. They weren't even watching the financial news. They're watching the negative news. Somebody's dying. Somebody's getting robbed. Someone's getting shot. They're operating in fear. Public people do public things. Private people protect their mindsets. They make it a point to seek out quality financial sources. People say, oh, trust Christian and Vault. Where are the financial sources that are quality financial sources? We'll give you an easy financial source that you can go look up, because there is no Lord or glory for financial information. There is no Lord or glory. There is no one pinnacle. They're gonna always get it right. We're not wrong for saying this person's name, but Warren Buffett's made money. Warren Buffett's lost money. You can't go to him and say, well, everything I listen to him, he's always gonna make money. If I listen to him, I'm always gonna make money. That's not true. So Warren Buffett makes money, lose money. If you copy him, you could lose money. Public people do public things. When you're looking for financial information, some information is going to work, some of it's not going to work. So people say, oh, where are the financial resources? Where are the financial information sources? Come on, we still been waiting. You've been delaying this for a couple seconds now. Okay, you can go look at a place like Reuters. Remember, we're not in promoting, we're not endorsing. We're just talking about a resource that we use that's fairly generic, that we looked at even today. It's a daily resource because it reports world news. Is it biased? Sure. Every source is biased. They have a narrative they're looking to paint, but we're aware that this is a website for financial information where you're looking to find financial information. Sometimes you have to look at world news, not just the financial specifics of, oh, well, this company just reported their earnings and now the industry's moving. When you get these big companies that literally, when you go look at a Tesla, ladies and gentlemen, this company has 50% plus of the money that's in the market that it's in. So when you look at the S&P, the value of that company is half the value of the whole composite, the whole market. That S&P, that has 50% of the value just in one company, Tesla. So when people ask questions about, well, you ask about, well, how do I get this financial information? If you just looked at Tesla, you might be fooled a little bit sometimes, because this company, who knows what's going on with this company? You got to research that. But we're talking about world news now. World news is going to give you a perspective not just on Tesla, it's going to give you perspective on what's going on in the world, what's going on with oil in the world, what's going on with grains in the world. So you can be aware of different prices that are going on in the world. So you can be aware of different GDPs going on in the world. When people talk about financial information, you can see world news and what these countries are reporting for how they're doing. How you gonna find it out if you're just looking at Tesla? Because oh, well, it's Elon Musk. It's a great company. As far as Elon and he's gonna go to the moon with it. Because every company he's got is going to space. Well, that's fine, but there are a lot of there are a lot of great resources, and we'll say Reuters is one of the ones that we look at for sure. We're not going to hold back on the trustees. A lot of trustees want to know, should they look at the news and things of that nature. There's nothing wrong with looking at world news when you talk about like a Reuters or something like that, because these are sources that they're giving you they're giving you a very broad range of information. And so when you talk about financial information, financial literacy, it's good to have a broad range of information. Not just, oh, it's focused on finance. It should be focused on a broad range of news, not just focused on even people, dying in the neighborhood or getting robbed and things like that. It should be a good, well-rounded news source. And so we will say, Reuters is one. Uh, and we don't want to just focus on financial information. We'll say investing.com. Investing.com is a great resource. We're not saying that's the all and be all, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. We're just saying that it's one of those websites. When you go to those websites, you can see that they actually have world news. When you go to their website, it has different regions, it has different financial information from different countries that has different news that are going on, just like you see the local news in your country or in your state. They have local news in those countries, so it's very important you can see what's going on ground truth. They might have the news in that country that you can already see the narrative that they want to push, but you can at least say, okay, this is the news that's coming out of that region. Okay, this is what's been reported today in that region. So you can see the information that's being reported actually just in time almost. If information is being shared very fast through the internet, which it is, a lot of these websites are always having reporters in these countries and reporting different pieces of information. So even right now with the war going on, it's very important to have a diverse information set of the news. Like, okay, for example, public people do public things. Public people doing public things means you're only talking to the people that are your nationality, or you're only talking to people of your culture. When you're in an environment where you're looking to get a broad range of financial information, you're engaging in environments with people of different nationalities, different cultures, different ethnicities, so you can get what's going on from their perspective. So even running into people recently from Ukraine, a lot of people in the states are probably, and even in the West, they're experiencing a lot of people coming from Ukraine, the people that have left that country, just literally because of the war that's going on right now, and being able to have conversations with those people. We've literally met people that are from that region. Literally met people that have had a missile go through the building that's not far from them, and being able to hear their perspective of how they look at America, how they look at the country that they just left, how they look at the opportunities, how they look at the failures of the country that they left, and how they look at the war, and things of that nature. You have a perspective on the war, but think about the Ukrainians that have left that country, and you talk to them and you hear what's their perspective on the war, because it's almost like, how did it affect you? You didn't have to leave the country as an American. You didn't have to leave a country. Like, they literally had to. When you hear a Ukrainian, everybody hears the story. Oh man, I started my life out with $200. I started my life out with $300. I started out my life with $1,000. I started out my life. I became successful when I got down to my last $500, to my last $1,000. Right, and then you hear these Ukrainians and they're saying, "Oh yeah, I made it to America and all I had was less than $10,000. I had less than $5,000." And you're like, there's no way you could fathom starting out your life. Literally, you gotta buy groceries, you gotta find a place to live. How do you find a place to live? You don't have credit, supposedly. You don't have American credit, right? Right. Y'all want to believe that, Americans, because you don't have financial education. You best believe these foreigners, they're on the internet. They didn't go through a course for $500. They didn't have $500 to learn get the credit repaired. They literally went on the government websites, found out how to beat their credit up, and now y'all don't want to know they're living a great life. Y'all don't want to know they're living in high rises. They just went from second world to first world. They improved their life, and their country's getting bombed right now. Literally.
Public people do public things. They don't have that perspective though. When you're public, you're focused on me, my. Where when you're in the private, you have a broad range of perspective. You have a good quality worldview. You're always open to hearing these other people's perspectives on their life and what's going on in the world right now. Literally right now, these people have left their country. You're able to talk to them and ask them what's their perspective on the war, to ask them their perspective on how they think of America if they're in America or in a Western country where there's more opportunity. Meaning that they literally are coming over to this country and they're not going into a ghetto. They don't know what a ghetto is. They're going into high rises. They're going into first world amenities. And it shows you they were down to their last 500, down to their last 1,500, down to the last 2,500, down to the last 5,000. Because they left the country. They had to spend $20,000, $30,000 to leave their country. See, if you're having conversations with these type of people, we've had these conversations where people spent over $10,000 to leave the country, to travel through 2 or 3 countries, to travel through 5 countries. Plus, public people do public things, and then you see these people from these foreign countries, from these other countries, they come over and they say, oh no, we know about operating through the BVI. We know about operating through the Caribbean. We just couldn't do it in our country because they had a lot more restrictive rules, whereas the United States, it has less restrictive rules. And then you're an American and you're sitting in America like, oh man, I'm not trying to go do business in the British Virgin Islands because that's where the government doesn't like that. The government doesn't like you to have a second passport. What are you talking about? Who told you that? The government doesn't like you having a second passport. The government doesn't like you having multiple citizenships. Who told you this? What a shame. Public people do public things. They only have one passport. They only have one citizenship. They believe that garbage. Instead of saying I need to diversify my citizenship. What's wrong with that? Are you providing good in the world? Yeah, then what difference does it make? Really, the jurisdictions want you to be a taxpayer. When you're private, might be a little bit more challenging, right? So you have to provide a private value now. You have to provide private equity now. That's what you have to provide: private value, private equity. How many people are able to do that though? I was educated in the public, got a public education. I'm going to do public things. Most likely. When you operate in the private, you understand that there's a different way to move, a different way to do business, a different way to do everything. We were talking to a trustee this week, and we could see when it clicked in their head that they had to become private because they saw that they kept speaking personally, and they understood that people in the public speak personally. People in the private, they speak in a non-biased way. It's not to say it's completely business, but it's very business because they understand that you can't take things personally. Whereas in the public, people get to voice their opinions, and that doesn't mean much in the public sometimes. That may not weigh anything. In the private, people say, oh, I want to go into private. I want to go into trusteeship. I want to go into equity. You want to go into sweat equity? So go into equity. Bring something to the table. Equity means there's value already there. It doesn't mean it's what are we going to talk about now? Well, y'all want to go there? Let's go there. Let's talk about it then. So we're going to go there with what do they call these things? Uh they're almost like an NFT, like a non-fungible token. They're called what is this term called? So they have tangible assets and intangible assets. Tangible assets are things like a true hard gold and silver. This is not financial advice or legal advice. We got to preface it. So your tangible assets are your hard assets, things that you can like touch, you could you can touch. The intangible assets are things that you can't touch. So it could be a digital asset. It could be a NFT. It could be something digitally. It could be something in your head. It could be IP, intellectual property. It could be copyright. It could be those things. So intangible is something that they're actually utilizing now in a digital era. And interestingly enough, it is a infinite way of doing life. It's just a contract. Really, that's what it is. When you talk about gold, you have the hard gold, and then you have gold futures contracts. Gold futures contracts are going to be uh, basically an intangible asset to a degree because you're not holding the actual asset gold, you're holding the intangible asset of it, which would be paper. So they call it a derivative. It's kind of it's called a derivative or of the sort. It's something that's a little bit less than the actual asset itself, the hard tangible asset. It's a derivative of it. It's just do your research on that term and you'll feel very comfortable with when we say it's a derivative in a financial sense. You'll be very familiar with what derivatives are if you're not. But we want to highlight that point. And so public people do public things. They're trying to focus on derivatives. They're not focused on hard tangibles. They're focused on derivatives because that's what's in the public. The public has derivatives. We're talking about some real wild stuff right now. We appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening, replay. Uh, and we thank everybody for listening. Always feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. So if you're not looking to do public things, feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trust